And today our training session will be on Media Marshmallows, Sweet Publicity Success Tips, Part 2, with our returning special guest trainer, the amazing Media Exposure Extraordinaire, Kerry Heaps, and she is from www.strictlymarketingmagazine.com. And you can also find Part 1 of this training in the Now On Demand section in our archives. And also there you can find the phenomenal 3-part training series on the basics of podcasting that Kerry also provided for our platform. So to reintroduce Kerry, Kerry is the president of Kerry's Network Incorporated, and she is also the publisher of Strictly Marketing Magazine, and she is the phenomenal host of Strictly Marketing Talk Radio. And within the show description, you will see her primary websites and offerings and how you can learn more about Kerry and her marketing empire. So at this time, I will be turning this segment over to Kerry. So I want to re-welcome Kerry. And Kerry, thank you again for providing these phenomenal and thorough training sessions and helping us to learn how to up-level our publicity. And, of course, we are looking forward to having you back on to do more future trainings to share more about your expertise in media exposure. So welcome, Kerry, and thank you again.
Thank you again, Alicia, for letting me be part of this platform, and I'm so excited to finish out Part 2 of Media Marshmallows, and I hope that you're loving these sweet, juicy tips that we are offering to get more publicity and more media coverage for your business. I'm going to just do a quick recap of Part 1. We talked about your goals, writing down your goals, what they are, your goals for getting publicity. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to get more clients and customers, but you need to have a more immediate goal than that, which would be something like getting, offering different knowledge about a book you've just written, or maybe it's a new service you've provided. So what can you provide with value-added content for listeners or for a reading audience? The second thing that we talked about was creating a media email that sizzles, and we're going to finish that up to talk about the email finishing touches today. And then, of course, we also talked about in segment 1 your bio and your headshot, making sure that your bio is consistently updated every 2 to 3 months and have a really good, clear headshot, 300 DPI or higher, used in the media coverage for anything that you're booked for. So, and you can use it in other marketing facets of your business as well. So we're going to carry on in this Part 2. We're going to talk about our third part, which is going to be creating topics that get the attention of the media and coming up with sample questions for each topic and like a brief summary as well. We're also going to talk about finishing up the email with those topics, so you have a really good shell email that you can customize to each media outlet. We're going to go over media outlets. Where are they? Where can you find them? And lastly, promoting your media encounters the right way and how they can be used in other aspects of marketing your business. So we're going to get started. If you don't have a pen and paper, please go ahead and pause this and grab a pen and paper and make some notes. And we're going to be on our way to share these other media marshmallows. So creating topics that get the attention of the media. What you need to do is come up with at least one topic that you feel comfortable. When I say comfortable, I'm talking about you are very knowledgeable on and you will feel very comfortable being interviewed on, whether it's in a written format or a verbal format. So if you just most people have more than one topic. If you don't have anything yet, what you need to do is figure out what is a good topic for you to bring forth in the media that would be good things for you to get interviewed on. So a great example would be if you're a real estate agent, there's several different topics that you could talk about. You could talk about, the top 5 things that you need to do before you sell your house, or a top 10 checklist before you sell your house, things that you need to make sure are done. When you're looking for a property in a new area, the top 5 things you need to look for in a specific area. So there's lots of different content, and people always think, well, I don't have anything to share that would be of value. You have tons to say and tons of value. What you need to do is you need to start asking yourself questions that maybe you can answer for a prospective client. You know, if you had somebody that came to you and said, gosh, I really would like to buy some commercial office space, but I don't know if it's the right fit for me. You would, if you're a commercial real estate agent, you're going to immediately be able to start spouting off different things that would help this particular person. Without realizing it, you have content. You have a slew of it. The problem is that you're always talking about it. It's not in written form. So you need to start asking yourself those questions. How do I bring value to my customers and my clients? And start writing it down. Ask yourself questions that your potential clients and customers usually will ask you, and start writing down those answers. You're going to come up with a ton of different topics that you can talk about, that you can bring value-added information to a conversation that somebody might be having with someone else, or with their in-laws or other people that they're talking to. So start having that conversation with yourself. Write down your answers. To get you started, just pick one topic. And it could be, the top 5 things you need to think about before you start your own business. Depending upon what business you're in, you really need to, come up with one topic. And come up with a really snappy topic, something that's going to grab attention. Top 5 things that you need to know before. Top 5 or top 10 lists always work out very well. Have a really good attention-grabbing topic. The next thing you need to do is, once you have your topic, is you need to create a little summary underneath that. What kind of a summary? 2 to 3 sentences. If somebody was tuning in to hear you talk about this topic, or if they're going to read that article, what are those readers or listeners going to take away? By tuning in to this particular program, you're going to learn the top 5 things that you need to have in place before you go out and talk to the media. Listeners will learn how to create a bio that sizzles, how to create sample topics and questions, and how to create an email that's going to get the attention of the media. So have a couple of sentences about that topic, okay? Once you come up with your topic and you've got a summary, a few sentences right underneath that, then you need to come up with 5 to 10 sample questions. Why? The reason you need that is threefold. Number one, you need to come up with sample questions because if it's a podcast or radio interview, you want to make the job of the host as easy as possible. So if you already have questions that they can pull from, that makes their job easier. It helps you because these are questions that you have formulated based on this topic, based on that summary, that are not only going to be of help to the host, but it's also going to really hone in on the listeners. These are questions that they have probably asked you, so they're asking other people. So it's going to help the people who are listening, providing value-added content for them. And it keeps the conversation on cue, on topic. And when you look at things with your SEO search engine results, those topics, summaries, and sometimes the questions are in print form or they're listed on a site. So search engines will start to pick those up. So you might wind up getting people that are listening to the podcast a year from now, or listening to that radio interview a year from now, that could become a potential client for you. So it helps the host, it helps you, and it helps the people who are listening. So always have those sample questions to go with every topic. Start out with one topic. If you create another one, go through the same process. Come up with a topic, a summary, and 5 to 10 sample questions for each one. Okay. The goal of this is to get you booked on the podcast or booked on the radio program if it is an interview. So these are things that the host can use. Make their job as easy as possible. The other thing that you want to have in regards to that is, putting that in your email, putting those finishing touches on the email. So if you go back into your email and kind of, after the second or third paragraph, put in there, I have been or can be interviewed, or I'm an expert on the following topics. And you can list those topics. If you just have one, put that in there, and then put the summary of what, the listening audience could take away. If it's a podcast, that will help out a lot. If it's an article that could be written, or a written publication, online or offline, a magazine, you'll want to put in a topic and summary, and this is something that you can write about at this point. Here are some of the topics I have written about, and include that topic in the summary. The questions at that point are are not going to be needed to be included. But once you put all of that in there, and then you can let people know, once you choose a sample topic, if it's a podcast, once you choose a sample topic, we'll email you an extended bio and headshot, high-resolution headshot, and sample questions that you can use during the interview. So again, making the process as easy as possible for the person who is accepting that email. And like I said, every media outlet's different, so the process is going to be a little bit different for print. It's going to be a little bit different for a podcast or radio program, and it's definitely going to be different if it's TV. But we're only really focusing on written media and podcasting or radio interviews for right now. So this will put the finishing touches on your email, so you have a very well-crafted email that you can customize for each media outlet that you approach. So at this point, you've got your bio, you got your headshot done, you have your sample questions and your topics and your emails done. So your next step is going to be finding the media outlets to submit this information to. So where are the media outlets? Where can you find them? Well, there's several different ways you can do this. I will tell you this is the most time-consuming part of the process if you go about this in a manual way, meaning that you don't purchase a media list or have access to a directory of media outlets. Finding different media outlets, you can do it through Google. You can definitely do searches, and I'm going to share some of those with you, but please understand something that could, 30 media outlets to find their information of where you need to submit information to and about their process could take in excess of 7 to 8 hours for just 30 media outlets. So that's a long time. So if you put a dollar value on your time, let's say $100 an hour or $200 an hour, can you really afford 8 hours worth of work that could potentially cost you $1,600? So that's where if you can purchase a media list or have access to a media directory, the pricing can be very reasonable. You can do some research online, and I also have an offer at the end of this particular training segment as well to have access to our media directory. So if you don't have any type of budget at all, meaning it's a zero budget, some things that you can do to find different media outlets. Podcasting. You can go to blogtalkradio.com. You can search by genre. So if you just want to be featured on business shows, or if you're in the health and wellness industry, you can search by health and wellness, and it's going to pull up all of the different shows that are in that particular arena. Now, my recommendation with Blog Talk Radio, if you see, listen to a couple of the shows. You don't have to listen to the whole thing, but at least 10 or 15 minutes, get a feel for what the show is about. And make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you, that it's targeting the same audience as you're trying to target. And if you contact the host, never do it directly through Blog Talk Radio. There's always a link to their website, to the show host website. Click on that. Go to the show's website, and go to their Contact Us page. And sometimes podcasters will have it where, submit your information here to be considered as a guest, and they have their own process, and you can follow their guidelines. So you're going to want to go directly to their website. If you don't see anything at all, not even an email address where you could send your email to, go to the Contact Us page of their site, and if they have a little box information thing you can fill out, put in your name and your email, and then just copy and paste the email that you put together and customize it a little bit and say, I listened to your podcast. I would love to be considered as a guest. I don't know what information you require, but, if it would help, I have sample topics. And just customize that email and put it in the body of the little Contact Us page, and then click Submit. And you will get people who will respond back to you. They might have, I find that every media outlet is not the same. They're all going to have different requirements. They're going to want different information. But out of the 5 things that we had you create, they're going to want at least 1 or 2 of those anyway. So you have everything already prepared and ready to go. So Blog Talk Radio is one where you could find different shows to submit your information to. You could go over to Podomatic or to iTunes. You could even look at Stitcher or SoundCloud and do the exact same thing. Filter by genre. If you're trying to focus just on accounting or finance shows, then just filter through to those. One thing about all of those other podcasting sites besides Blog Talk, you will find that most shows, if they're on Apple, they have a feed that will feed directly. You'll find the same shows on Podomatic, on Stitcher, and on SoundCloud, and vice versa. So I would suggest picking one of those outlets and doing the exact same thing, listening to a little bit of their show website and contact the show host from there. The reason that you don't want to go through each one of them is because if those particular media outlets are hosted on all of those platforms, there could be a duplication of effort on your part, and that translates into wasted time. And as I said earlier, this is the most time-consuming part of the process. So you want to save as much time as you possibly can. Another great place where you can find publications, just do a Google search. So if you are a health and wellness expert and you're looking to target women in their mid-40s or just women that are having health-related issues with menopause or something like that, you can always just do a Google search on women in 40s, publications or blogs, or something that has to do with menopause, publications or blogs. And when you do that, that search engine is going to come up with a bunch of results of different blogs and publications, and you can just click on each one and look at it, see if it's something that you'd want to contribute to or can contribute to. And if they don't have a contributors page, do the same thing that you do with the podcast. Click on the Contact Us link, or if they have a general email, and just submit that email and customize it and say, I've checked out your blog. I would love to be a contributing content provider. What information would you require from me? And you could even just send that and click submit, or you could, finish out the rest of that email so they can see some of the articles that you've written or listen to some of the podcasts and take a look at your website. So definitely make sure that you're customizing those emails that you send out, but you should have those 4 major components in it: your bio, a little bit about you, short bio, some of your sample work or sample podcast or sample article you've written, your topics and summary, and how you plan on promoting the show, and of course your contact information at the end. So those are some ways that you can find different publications to look for different places. If you were able to do it, I highly encourage you, buy a media list, have access to a media directory. It will cut down on all of this by a landslide. And this can be a time-consuming process, so you definitely want to make sure that you're saving time where you can. Once you start doing that and you start getting feedback, people are emailing you back. They'd like to book you on the podcast, or they'd like to book you for a radio interview, or for to write a blog post or magazine article. Once you start getting that back and you start going through the motions of writing those articles, making sure that they're original content, getting those interviews done, most media outlets do have a time period from the time they receive your information to the time that it's published, and that's very normal. Sometimes it can be 4 weeks, sometimes it could be up to 8 weeks, and I've seen as short as 2 weeks, and sometimes it's immediate. So once the article is published, your last piece of the puzzle is that you need to be promoting your media encounters. You need to be promoting them the right way. Number one, you need to have, if you don't have one already, add a page to your website, your personal or your business page. Have a media or press page on your site where it's nothing but the articles you've written, links to podcast interviews or radio interviews, or different articles that you have written. Why is this important? Well, it's twofold. Number one, you need to keep track of all this, so that way you can reference it, in the future if anybody ever asks for it. And secondly, too, you're establishing yourself as an expert, and getting featured in the media is almost like immediate expert status. They thought enough of you to ask you for your opinion to come on their show or write for their magazine or blog or whatever. The next thing it does is that you might have some people who have been coming to your website that can't get to you personally. They could be 3 or 4 states away from you. They've been on the fence about hiring you, and sometimes all it takes is for them to read a couple of articles you've written, or listen to a podcast interview, hear your voice, or see a video interview, on a Google Hangout or Blab or Periscope or whatever, people are using these days. So sometimes that's all it takes for them to get off the fence and move forward with becoming your next client or customer. So the other aspects of your sales as well. If you do any amount of cold calling, you can integrate that into your script. You may have read my column in and you just kind of fill in the blank. when you follow up with an email with them to let them know, here, in case you're interested, here's a link to the article I wrote in this particular publication. And it just helps to build that credibility, for during the sales process, so people can want to do business with you and, sometimes, again, that's all it takes is to kind of sway them in that direction. They just need a little bit more assurance that you're the right person for them. Another reason you definitely want to promote your media encounters as well is because of search engine optimization. Obviously, some of the best media out there for you is going to be print, or if you can write blog posts for someone else's blog or online magazine. And the reason being is because printed, they're going to be, that gets tagged a lot easier than a radio interview or a podcast interview, depending upon how it's set up. So if you're doing that, when you're writing that article or going back to writing up your own topics, your own summary, your own questions, keeping SEO in mind, you have that opportunity to really make sure that there are certain key phrases that you're using in your verbiage when you're talking to people and sharing your expertise, that when someone searches for that in the search engine, that your interview is going to have a really good chance of popping up on the first page, and that's what you want. We do keyword searches all the time for all the media stuff that I do, and I've had some of it come up on the first page and some of it come up on the second page, depending upon what type of interview it was, what type of search terms were used, and so forth. So it can be a very, very powerful tool that does so many different things for you within your business. So those are some other things to kind of consider. When you're promoting your media encounters too, once it gets published, take that link. If you have access to any social media outlets, I would highly recommend you have a tool, something like Hootsuite or, another program where you can schedule out tweets. What you should do with every media outlet that you get on, have that scheduled, have those updates scheduled, schedule around 50 or 60 throughout the year to continually promote it, because you never know once it pops up in someone's news feed, that they're not going to click on it and read it, and it could be 6 years from now or 6 months from now. So you definitely want to promote it as much as you possibly can, and always make sure that you're tagging the media outlet in your post. So if the person who is in charge of that particular online magazine or the online magazine itself, tag them in that. So that way they can see that you are a person of your word, that you're promoting the publication, you're promoting your article. Definitely make sure that you're scheduling those out and spacing those out. We actually do up to 6 months for scheduling out media interviews that I have done. That way, 6 months from now, something I do this week will still be talked about in 6 months or in a year. And it definitely spaces it out quite a bit. People think, well, I don't want to overload people with all of my information. Well, you're not doing that. Number one, you have to remember you're providing value-added content. And you need to be able to promote that, because you never know who you're going to be able to help, who's going to come across that information, when they need to hear it, exactly when they need it. So definitely don't sell yourself short, and don't sell your potential customers and clients short by not providing that information to them. So these are just a couple of the things that you can do to ensure that you are getting as much media exposure as possible.